Good evening, everyone, and welcome to those of you in person, to those live streaming, and to our community in Catalina. Let's see, we will have our student board member lead us in a pledge. At this time, I'll ask our board secretary to take a roll call and establish a quorum.
Member Lopez.
Present.
Member Otto. President Craighead.
Here.
Member Benitez.
Here.
Vice President Miller.
Here.
And Student Member Nuala.
Here.
We have a quorum.
The board has been meeting in closed session regarding matters listed on today's agenda. The board took action on the following items. On item 3.1, on a motion made by Member Benitez and seconded by Vice President Miller, the board voted 5-0 to approve the public employment. And I will ask Dr. Ahn to provide some specifics.
Thank you. We have two promotions this evening. We have Keely Lewis, who's going from the counselor at Wilson to the head counselor at Avalon K-12. We also have Kevin Smith, who is a program specialist or acting assistant director in the Pathways and Business Engagement Office, moving to an assistant director in the Pathways and Business Engagement Office.
Congratulations. And I don't think we have either of them here tonight. On item 3.3, on a motion made by Member Benitez and seconded by Vice President Miller, the board voted 5-0 to approve a final settlement agreement and general release for the OAH case 2026010-484. On item 3.4, on a motion made by Vice President Miller and seconded by Member Otto, the board voted 5-0 to approve the terms of the settlement agreements in the workers' compensation claim numbers listed on the closed session agenda. And speaking of agenda, we'll now go to the adoption of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? And our student board member?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0 with a preferential vote. And we have no student representative tonight because last week was graduation, so
They're out of school.
they're out of school. They're enjoying their summer, hopefully. And next on the agenda, we have recognitions, acknowledgements, and reports. So I'll direct our attention to the screen.
President Craighead, before we move on from the video, I'd just like to acknowledge the communications team. It is an incredible feat to attend and video and take photos at all of our graduations and to live stream most of our graduations. So they are often behind the scenes, and so let us just express our appreciation to that team that literally wore themselves out getting the images that we just saw. And every school is represented on our website with a series of video and images that can be enjoyed by the public. So thank you, communications team.
And thank you, Dr. Baker, for making sure that we acknowledge them and all their efforts. It was an incredibly celebratory week, and I'm sure we're going to cover that in our reports. So let's see. Now, I believe we're going to go to our student board member, Board Member Nwala, for her final report.
Yes, a brief acknowledgement before my report. Juneteenth is short for June 19th. This date commemorates the effective end of slavery in the United States. This day marks when federal troops arrived to Galveston, Texas, a whole 2 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863, declared that all enslaved individuals in Confederate states rebelling against the Union would be thenceforward and forever free. This did not immediately free any enslaved individual. It only pertained to Confederate-controlled areas. Enslaved people sought freedom behind Union lines as Northern troops progressed into the Confederate South. In Texas, slavery had continued as the state did not have significant presence of Union troops. As the war came to a close in the spring of 1865, General Granger's arrival in Galveston that June signaled the freedom of Texas's 250,000 enslaved people. Emancipation didn't happen overnight for everyone, but that December, slavery in America was formally abolished with the adoption of the 13th Amendment. That was the acknowledgement. And for my report, I just want to say what an honor it has been to serve as student board member this year. What an honor it's been to represent my peers and to do so alongside the most brilliant and amazing minds that lead our district every day. So thank you for that. And I am forever proud to say that I'm a graduate of LBUSD. This district has done so much in supporting and nourishing and just making sure that the minds of our students are forever changed. So thank you for everything that you all have done for me. I will always appreciate it.
And I'll just tell you that on behalf of your colleagues on the board, we appreciate everything that you've brought to this dais, everything that you've brought to the position. We appreciate having your student voice, and you've done an excellent job. So thank you. Let's see, on the agenda we have a public hearing, we have no public hearing, and that brings us to public testimony on items listed on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
No, we do not have any speakers on items listed on the agenda or items not listed on the agenda. So no
Okay.
public speakers for tonight.
Okay, no public speakers this evening. So that brings us to the reports on superintendent advisory groups. We'll start with business, budget, and policy development. Dr. Benitez.
Just a quick report from me, President Craighead. We had a chance, yourself included, myself, and some of our executive leadership team to meet with Greg Klein and an additional, I'm forgetting their name, person from the team. Anyways, we met with two individuals and reviewed what it means to monitor and review policies and whether policies align with our core board goals and guardrails. So there were different sort of scenarios that were presented to us. Nothing was decided on nor recommended, but basically letting us know that they can follow up with us to provide potential scenarios in two levels. One is how we can approach, if we desire to do so, to review policies. And at this point, we have a lot of policies on the books. And then a potential lens with which we could determine what policies stay at the board level and what policies move to the superintendent operational level. And then once that, if we went that route, once that process was undertaken, then in order to uphold the intent of the policies, there was a recommendation of reviewing and monitoring policies more consistently, so that we would, within our own 4-year terms, have the opportunity to go through the review and the monitoring of the policies. So again, no decision was made. There were different options and scenarios presented, with a next step plan to provide the board with an opportunity, if the board desires to do so, to take on those different pathways to conclude what is referred to in student outcomes focused governance, the policy diet, with which we also evaluate and assess ourselves under that lens as a board.
Thank you for the report. And next, we have instruction and student learning supports.
No report tonight.
Thank you. And workforce development.
Just very briefly, from a workforce development standpoint, well, let me take a step back. From a district standpoint, there's a lot of conclusions that has happened on our campuses, but for an HR standpoint, this is when they're probably at their busiest, right? And so I think that space is very, very fluid, but one of the things that I know that Dr. An is working on for us is to provide the annual report on our hiring demographics for 2026 as we continue to work to have our workforce mirror the city demographics. And so looking forward to that in coming months.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the consent calendar. We need a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have quite a few questions, but I first want to recognize and thank the PTAs and school foundations for their support of students in schools. They've made a number of donations, Bixby PTA, and obviously to their school, $1,500, Bircham PTA, $1,108, Cleveland PTA, $739, Emerson PTA, $235, Rogers PTA, $750, Madison PTA, $2,800, Cubberley Foundation, $10,975, Grant PTA, $51,500, Fremont PTA, $58,000, Prisk PTA, $54,700, and Lowell PTA, $129,500. And this is great, and supporting our schools, our students is great, and I'm hoping that we can get some of these PTAs to also maybe help train some of the parents in other schools, underserved schools, so that they can also form PTAs and bring funds to their school in outside funds. Number 45, item 15.6. If someone could please clarify this item regarding the authority granted to sign construction change orders. And so my question is, would this authorization permit modifications to a project scope, scale, or design? Or in other words, would this authority allow a project to be reduced in scope without further board review or approval?
Yes, so for change orders, there is a threshold. We bring the change orders to the board.
Okay.
And this is just the authority just to sign the change order. So it's the technical signing of it. When there is a change order, we bring it to the board for approval.
Perfect. Number 53 on 15.6. Has the board previously established a cap or limit on the amount that the chief business and financial officer may spend under the authority to approve settlements of $50,000 or less? And if so, can you explain the parameters of those limitations?
Yeah. Yeah, this authority to compromise and settle has been in place for
Right.
many years.
Right, but do we have a limit to say, like, you're authorized, like, there are parameters, $10 million, like, you can't go over $10 million in settlement. So I know we
Yeah,
have
this is
the-
for this is for individual settlements.
I
at
understand.
50,000. No, we do not have an overall.
we don't have a
ceiling
limit,
in terms
ceiling
of
cap.
An aggregate settlement amount on behalf of the district.
Okay, that was my question that we had. Okay, 15.8, numbers 1, 2, 13, and 14. I have a question regarding the significant differences in the costs associated with managing summer programs across school sites. For example, the proposed expenditure for Action Youth America at Hamilton is approximately $26,955, while the amount at Tincher is approximately $319,805. And also, very similar, the cost for Campfire Angels summer program at Webster is $68,895, while the cost at Naples Elementary is $432,000 and $507,000 at Cubberley and Lowell. And I just want to understand how these funds are being distributed and whether funding is being allocated equitably.
So I can't speak to the specifics of those sites. I do know that these are based on, these contracts go out to bid, and so all of these different providers have an opportunity to submit bids. Much of it is based on the number of students that are served. That's primarily the difference, because the number of students determine the number of staff. There could be multiple agencies there as well, but I don't have specifics on those sites that you mentioned, why one might be different than the other than most likely it is related to the difference in number of students served.
So Naples would have more students than Webster?
It's possible, because sometimes what we do as well, we do, especially at a school like Naples, it's a regional. So many of our schools will just serve their own students, and some of our schools also serve more regional. So you might have more students from multiple schools going to a Naples, for example, for a summer program. These are all related to the summer program.
Would it be possible to get those numbers sent to the board, or at least to me? I'd like to see the number of students being served in each one of the schools, because the gaps in allocations, they're like pretty big. When we go from 26,000 to 319, or from 68,000 to 432 and 507,000, those are huge gaps. So just want to see the number of students that are being served in each of these schools. And I know I've asked this question, but I'm going to ask another question regarding contract with the Guidance Center for $697,460 to provide mental health services for students, parents, and staff. Just want to, if someone could clarify which parents and staff members would be eligible to receive these services, and also just confirmation that there's no perceived conflict of interest, or there's no conflict of interest, given that Dr. Brown and Dr. Sosa Valderrama serve as honorary board members for the Guidance Center.
So I can speak to about what the contract is. It is a renewal for educationally related mental health services. And to be eligible for those, the students would have to have that service on their IEP. And before I was in this position, that's when I served as a board member, and then I stopped. And
What about because the contract does say that this also serves parents and staff, like who's eligible, which parents, which staff members?
the parents of the students that have educationally related mental health services. So if it is in their IEP that they will have consultation with the families, that's when they receive the services. So it's whatever is written into the IEP.
Okay, and then the staff members that are eligible to receive these services?
Yes, the teachers that work with the students.
Okay, very good. 1511, Proposition 30, or the Schools and Local Public Safety Protection Act, EPA, was approved by the voters in 2012, increasing state sales tax for all taxpayers and personal income tax rates for upper income taxpayers. With the passage of Prop 55 in 2016, these higher income tax rates were extended through the end of 2030. And the estimated amount LBUSD is going to receive next school year from this proposition is $155,416,967. And when we say that 100% of these funds will be allocated to instruction, can you please clarify for the public specific expenditures that are included within this category and the percentage directly supporting classroom teaching and learning?
It's for classroom teachers. So that 100 million is allocated to classroom teachers, and we just have to vouch for that by virtue of this resolution every year.
Okay, so 100 million is for going into the classroom?
Yes, it's revenue that the district receives.
Right.
It's just part of our general fund, and we vouch that it goes to, in support of instruction, which is classroom teachers.
100%, so 155 million, over
Yes,
155 million.
we spend much more than that on teachers and classroom instruction, but we need
Yes.
to vouch for that 100% of these funds are going to that
Okay,
purpose.
those are all my questions.
2 questions from me, Madam Chair. Item 15.4, Mr. Moskovitz, could you elaborate more on the articulation agreement with El Camino College and the Project Lead the Way?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we have our local community colleges throughout the state of California. Local community colleges have kind of a district area, and when they provide dual enrollment courses for school districts, we first, or when we need a dual enrollment course within our district, we first go to our local community college district and ask if they can provide that. We have done so. We've been working with Long Beach City College. We have a great relationship with them. They provide just a tremendous support for dual enrollment. These particular Project Lead the Way courses that we're seeking, they did not have the staffing currently for this next school year. So when they turn down the opportunity to provide those courses, then we have the opportunity to go to a next closest, if you will, community college district and seek their ability to provide us with the staff to teach that course. So that's what we're doing. We work with Long Beach City College regularly. They are looking and are planning to provide staffing for those courses for future years. They're just not able to do so this next school year.
Perfect. And then one additional question for item 15.12. The increase in Child Development Center fee-based programs, understanding that many of our families don't pay any fee, that this would only impact those families that are currently paying $60, the increase to $75. If not for this meeting, if it's not possible, could we be provided how many families would be impacted by that fee increase, Mr. Moskovitz?
Absolutely. Yeah, the vast majority pay no fees
Correct.
for CDC programs, but we can definitely get you that information.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions about the consent calendar? In that case, we'll take a roll call vote. So I'll ask our board secretary to do that. Thank you.
Member Lopez?
Aye.
President Craighead?
Aye.
Member Benitez?
Aye.
Vice President Miller?
Aye.
Student Board Member Nuala?
Aye.
That's a 4-0 with a preferential student vote.
Thank you. There's no staff report, so we will go to item number 17.1, review of local indicators update and adoption of the 2026-2027 local control and accountability plan. Dr. Baker.
Yes, thank you. I am pleased to make the recommendation that you adopt the 2026-2027 Local Control and Accountability Plan. And just a few highlights before I turn to you. First of all, I want to thank our LCAP team, the team of Dr. Lucy Salazar, Dr. Veronica Madrigal, Margaret Lamb, George Tsai, Carmen Hernandez, just for all of their hard work this year in their areas of expertise and in working as a team. Deep appreciation for the community engagement that they did. In fact, this year marks the highest level of growth of improvement in LCAP engagement. 2,860 participants, and they are to be credited for that, which actually in a 2-year period is a 38.3% increase in engagement. So that is terrific to see. As a reminder, this is the 3rd year of a 3-year LCAP, and so this is important this year, and next year will be the beginning of a new process for the LCAP. This year continues to reflect alignment with goals and guardrails, other goals and metrics for all of our student groups you can see in the LCAP, a connection to your Vision 2035 and our strategic plan. Additionally, there were no additional community questions submitted this year, and I think to myself, well, if 2,860 participants in LCAP engagement, perhaps the questions and the feedback came in that form. We did post a letter indicating that there were no additional questions, so there wasn't confusion about where the answers to the questions are. The final draft that is before you, recommended for approval tonight, does include local indicators. You were provided a set of slides that reflect those local indicators for the public. Those appear in the board materials on page 368 to 385 of the public-facing materials. All of the other metrics will be updated when student results are finalized, for example, our SBAC results, and/or when required by the state. Tremendous work put into finalizing, checking everything. I appreciate board members who participated in a budget briefing that also allowed for discussion of LCAP. Good questions were asked and clarification. So what is before you is a recommendation that you approve the LCAP.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Dr. Baker, regarding the opportunity for briefing, I would highly encourage our incoming superintendent to consider continuing those. I found them extremely helpful. The hard part is sort of the timing between the budget update, the draft of the LCAP that we have. So I think it's an opportunity for us to learn and grow from that as well. But found the briefings extremely important because if it wasn't necessarily and I'll just use an arbitrary example. If funding wasn't only coming from LCFF, right, we have an opportunity to think of the broader budget through that lens as well. So again, just kudos for that briefing and encouragement to continue when possible those briefings in relation to LCAP and budget.
Thank you. Good feedback for us. And the opportunity exists year-round because, frankly, budgeting is a year-round process, but leading into today, of course. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Our student board member?
Aye.
That passes 4-0 with a preferential vote. Next on the agenda, we have item number 17.2, adoption of the district's budget for fiscal year 2026-27. I'll hand it off to Ms. Takahashi.
Sure. This budget is the same budget. It remains unchanged from that which we presented to you a few weeks ago. Just a reminder, there is a comprehensive memo that accompanies the budget that is in the board materials as well as posted online with our budget documents. Just as an update, the state legislature did approve a budget, and many of the major proposals for education proposed by Governor Newsom are contained in that but state legislature approved budget. At this time, the governor and the state legislature, they are coming to an agreement on the final budget package. Once that agreement is reached, the governor will sign the budget. So again, if there's any material changes to our budget by virtue of the approved budget at the state level, we have 45 days to amend the budget. So we will keep the board and community apprised of any budget updates. Thank you.
Quick question, Ms. Takahashi, understanding that as in terms of what we're expecting now, it's roughly 1.27 billion or so. When you're referring to changes, might there also be scenarios where there isn't a change to our total expected budget, but then changes within the budget?
Yeah, if there are expenditure changes,
Yep.
then yeah, we would
Okay.
bring budget adjustments to the board.
Okay.
For example, we have the agreement with our Teachers Association.
Correct. Yeah.
Those budget adjustments are routinely brought to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Before we take a vote, I just want to thank you for, it was part of the discussion, but I just want to thank you for the memo part of the budget where you give a summary and break it down into very clear, bite-sized parts of information. It makes it easier to understand the entirety of the budget. It's a large document, and it's nice to have the summary to aid in understanding. So, any further discussion? Oh, Vice
No,
President Miller.
I just wanted to double down on that. I appreciate your ability to take a very complex math equation and make it plain to us as board members, and more importantly, to the community. And I'll be honest with you, I think that not only does our budget do that, but I think the LCAP does that as well. I think that the team does a great job of making it plain, and I think that's an important communication tool that we need to continue as we as our values of transparency still reside within the district.
Are you entertaining a motion, President Craighead?
I thought we had a motion on
No,
the...
no, we didn't.
No, we did not. Not yet. Oh, okay.
No, to be clear, you guys jumped the gun, and I'm going to say we did not follow Robert's Rules of Orders at this point.
Well, to be clear, in the bylaws, it says that we are using Robert's Rules of Orders for guidance.
Touche.
It's,
Checkmate, Mr. Miller.
we don't use them strictly. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to adopt the budget.
We'll move for approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? In that case, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Our student board member?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0 with a preferential vote. And next on the agenda, we have acceptance of the monitoring report for Board Interim Guardrail 1B. We had a special meeting this afternoon that we'll have Dr. Baker speak to at this time.
Sure. So let me reintroduce this. Yes, we had a wonderful opportunity to hear from our counselor from Adams, a student, Gerardo, and Catherine Perez about many aspects of monitoring. And so Guardrail 1B, our last guardrail to be monitored this year, is the proxy for equitable resourcing. And I say that to set up that when we think about equitable resourcing, there are a lot of resources in the LCAP, including things like elevation, which we heard all three of them speak to today, the multilingual office, staff, other opportunities for students in Sunday program, and other tools for our English learners. And so the idea that this guardrail is about monitoring was to give us a glimpse into what it looks like to fund and source equitable resourcing for English learners. It was important, and I shared this at the beginning, and then I want to go to some of the notes I took about our panel. It was important at the beginning to realize that this is an incomplete picture of the work to develop our English learners. This is an incredibly important goal, that all English learners are monitored in a robust way, not in a minimum way, but in a robust way. And so you'll see in the report that we establish a baseline moving from 0, and that isn't because English learners were not being monitored, but we've established greater expectations and criteria for the way that we monitor our English learners. So the baseline of 0 with a target of hitting 75%. We exceeded that in the first year to 90% of monitoring. That's important, and we'll talk a little bit about the perhaps 10% that we did not see monitored. I know that was a question that you asked earlier today, Dr. Benitez. The pairing of monitoring is the full implementation of the English Learner Master Plan. We need to monitor, and equally importantly, we need to implement all aspects of the English Learner Master Plan. And there is a plan in place to continue to deepen all aspects of the English Learner Master Plan. The panel provided insight from those who are closest to the work. What does it mean to be a counselor supporting teachers and monitoring? From the OCIPD, what does it look like to, from a system perspective, work with counselors and work with teachers around monitoring? And that is what is was reflected in the panel, and is also reflected in the monitoring report itself. For the public, the report appears on page 582 or 581 through, get my page numbers correct, through 620. Important is the data page on 583, which is reflective of us reaching 90% of our English learners being monitored in the way that we have set the expectation in Elevation. And just to add to that, that doesn't mean that 10% of students weren't monitored in some way. All of our students have assessments that they take in their classroom that are for all students. They work with teachers in small groups. They're assessed in small groups. They have some of the formal tools and informal tools. So that number reflects specifically the expectations that we have established as our teacher monitoring form that is in Elevation. So I'll share a few things, but I hope that you will share what you heard from staff today and from our student that shared about some of the technicalities of using Elevation. We heard a counselor share just wonderful in the way that counselors have grown in their ability to work with teachers in Elevation, getting to use that. We heard Catherine Perez talk about not only what's available for monitoring, but also what is available for supports within the Elevation that is actually directly connected to student information, We heard about the role of teachers, answering the question from quantitative and qualitative data about students' readiness to be reclassified. And we heard a really amazing story from one of our students who has an accelerated pathway to being reclassified and will continue to be monitored for 4 years as a redesignated student. So lots to really reflect on that we heard today, as well as is reflected in the report. And so with that, welcome any opportunities you want to elevate what you heard, and then to ask any questions that you'd like that weren't answered or that you want to just bring into the space this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. Great summary of all the stuff that took place earlier this afternoon. I just wanted to lift up a couple of things from sort of what I took away and what impacted me personally the most. Understanding that part of the monitoring is accountability, right? And making sure that our multilingual learners are showing the growth and progress that we want them to. But attached to that, I think it's important for me, as we review our master plan and as we get this data presented, that it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? Even just with the earlier presentation today, the student, this was a 2-year engagement with our district, given that some students start off, whether it's TK, pre-K, kindergarten, and our elementary school, and then our long-term English learners, and then our more recent newcomers to the district. I also appreciated, even if it was at a very high level today, that the monitoring serves that purpose of holding ourselves accountable, but also of utilizing the right supports for students, and having our student today so eloquently provide testimony for how important those supports were for him, particularly the engagement with teachers actually implementing those best practices that we look for. So there's a whole area that I took away from just how important it is to have, yes, our boots on the ground, our experts, but actually hearing from students, right? And for that student's courage to also share that it's not just about those instructional supports, but taking into account the whole student. I mean, we heard a powerful testimony this morning of the additional layers of, I called them challenges in English. And then Dr. Brown looked at me, he was like, okay, how do we say that in Spanish? I tried my best, and just really appreciated the students' expression of the additional layers of personal challenges that our students are facing every single day, including personal fear. Right, so again, the sense of belonging, all of our understandings, the being seen, being heard, being understood, to me, just was a good reminder of, yes, there are additional instructional supports and consistencies around monitoring and the right supports and interventions and utilizing the tools and resources, but then there's that relational aspect that the students' eyes gleamed and smiled about that feeling of being supported, right? And so that's the piece that I want to encourage our team, that there are these words in the master plan, but there is that human relational aspect to the work that codifies the culturally responsive, culturally sustaining, culturally affirming, particularly for our multilingual learners. So just appreciative of the opportunity here from the team and from the students along those lines.
And I just want to say that, so a lot of this is we're required to do with it, whether it's a goal or not, that's like what we're required to do. And also having an English learner master plan had been a requirement forever. We just recently implemented one. But I am hopeful that what we have now in paper is implemented in the classrooms, and we are looking at this group that has not been doing well. Student outcomes need to improve for our English learners, our long-term English learners, and I know I've said this before, and just to clarify that a lot of these kids are actually born in this country, because people will look at and think that English learners are newcomers. And yes, some of them are, but many of them are not. And so I want to make sure that as we are looking at this interim guardrail, we are making additional changes in the classroom that need to be made so that we can adequately serve our students, because we need to improve outcomes in this area.
Well, I just want to uplift the teachers and staff that supported the student that we heard from today, making it possible for this student to be reclassified within the span of 1 year. And so that represents an effort on his part and also an effort on the part of the staff and teachers. And so now we have a student who is going from Franklin Middle School to Sato, and he spoke about his love for math, and he spoke about his dreams for the future. So by providing this support and by this student working so hard, he now has a future in front of him that includes astronomy, neurosurgery, some kind of engineering, civil and yeah. So what we saw today was a student who is able to dream, a student who's able to reach for the stars, if you will, because of the opportunities afforded by the system. So I just want to thank everybody for making that possible. It truly does take a village, and it's something that we want for every student.
You just reminded me of one additional thing that I shared this afternoon. Dr. Myers-Miller is here. If you can help convey this back to Catherine Perez and the entire team, Dr. Myers-Miller, the importance of the work that they're doing with parents and caregivers and communities, whether that's in the DLAC space, the ELAC space, because much of what we're able to hear today comes also back to parents as allies. Our community cultural wealth model, that our communities come with gifts and talents. This particular student was multilingual, learning French, I believe, as well. So again, affirming that we see our communities with all their gifts and talents and strengths, and how important family was for this particular student, given that half of his family is not able to be here in support. So please continue to remind the team that we see their efforts, and the parents that are making time to support not just their students, but other students in the district. I hope you're able to convey the impact that they're having, Dr. Meyer-Miller.
I will do that. Actually, we have 2 meetings that are set up this summer to meet with the DLAC board and do some strategic planning for the whole year. So I will convey that to the board members. Thank you.
You asked a question this afternoon, and we said we'd wait till this evening, but you asked a question about the 10% that weren't monitored and, our expectation towards 100%, and we have some hypotheses about that. So Brian was going to share just a little bit as we learn more.
Yeah, and actually, it's important to know this is one of those reports that we waited until literally like the 11th hour to print, because we were still, and we even completed some EL monitoring beyond the date, but we had the print date, we had to get it to the board, we had to get it to the public. So we were collecting this. Our schools were working on monitoring up till the end of the last day of the school year. Teams like the research team, Dr. Madrigal's team, Dr. Myers-Miller team, are constantly working with schools to say, hey, here are some students through elevation that still need to be monitored. So we're going to spend this summer, now that we have this firm data, we've spent 1 year of really intentional monitoring with elevation in the way that this interim guardrail sets up. We're going to take this summer to really go down to the school level and the individual teacher level to see, is it 10% across the board, or are there a couple of schools who were experienced more challenges than others? Are there a couple of teachers that experience more challenges than others in getting it done? So I can't give you specifics yet, but what I will say is, as we start to look, for example, kindergarten, as you look in figure 2 of the report, kindergarten was at 77%, whereas 90% overall. 12th grade was 78%. So those two, I think, really stand out. The seniors are probably a little easier to explain. These are seniors. They're going on to the rest of the world. There's no real incentive, if you will, other than the importance of making sure we communicate that these students have been able to reclassify. But that's probably, we could chalk that up probably to some of that senioritis and things that happen where they're just not as motivated potentially for that. But on the kindergarten one, this is something that we started to dig into in the last week or so, just to try to better understand. There's several things happening there. When a kindergarten student first enrolls, first of all, not all our kindergarten students enroll on August 26th, first day of school. Kindergarten enrollment happens as the year goes along. When a student comes in and registers and they do that home language survey, that's the first component that triggers that the student may be an English learner, that we need to go through that initial LPAC, which is the test that students take, the initial screening. And in some cases, that doesn't happen until later in the school year because of when they register, when they enroll. One of the requirements for our kindergartners in order to reclassify is that our English learner kindergarten students have to take the iReady assessment, Diagnostic 2. Some of them don't take iReady Diagnostic 2 because they're not identified as an English learner through the process until after that. So they sort of miss the window, if you will, to have taken iReady Diagnostic 2 that would allow us to see if they are able to be redesignated. So many of those percentages you see in kinder are because of when they were identified during the year, when they registered, when they were identified. They may or may not have been able to take iReady Diagnostic 2, which is one of our local measures that we use around redesignation. So that is one component. But again, we're digging deeper into, is it a 23% kind of across the board in kinder, or are there some schools that maybe just need a little bit more support in understanding the importance, ways that we can mitigate maybe late enrollment in kinder, ways that we can increase or move up the identification process for those students so that they're part of that as well.
Brian, can we go a little deeper on the kindergarten example? So given that, again, notwithstanding what you just shared about when iReady is done, and or if a student doesn't enroll until that first week, right? We don't have that data. But let's say for our students that did complete the home language survey that are entering our system, is it foreseeable that if we knew about these students as they registered, that they wouldn't be monitored in kindergarten?
No, they're monitored. They're absolutely monitored. To Dr. Baker's point, 100% of our English learners are monitored in some way.
Okay.
That includes taking FIRSA that we talk about, fluency assessments, district assessments.
Yeah.
They're getting ELD in their classroom, small group instruction. So there's monitoring taking place. This interim guardrail is specifically monitoring a very specific process, and that involves the LPAC.
Yep.
It involves our local measures that, in this case, for kindergarten, is Diagnostic 2 iReady.
Yep.
There are some very specific things that need to happen. And then once those assessments are in, then teachers complete their component. We meet with parents to communicate with parents. They fill out the intervention plan recommendations. So this is a very specific process. If a kindergarten student registers late or isn't identified as an English learner until later, and they missed the iReady Diagnostic 2 window, for example, they're still receiving all of those supports and services as an English learner. They're still receiving ELD. They're still receiving the small group instruction in the classroom. They just may not have participated in this very specific monitoring process that is part of this report. So therefore, their numbers won't show up in the overall numbers completed.
And the home language survey automatic is the catalyst for the other monitoring to occur?
You see, yeah. So when a parent registers their child and they complete the home language survey, there's 4 questions, I believe. And if any one of those 4 questions is marked as a yes, it asks things like, what was English the first language spoken in the home, and all the things. If any of those is marked yes.
I'm an EL family.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
So yeah.
Then well, for those at home that may not be, right? Then those students are automatically identified as a potential English learner. And then we are obligated within 30 days to give them an initial LPAC assessment.
So that's what I was looking for. 30 days, Brian.
Yes,
is okay.
There's a 30-day window that we need to administer. Staff needs to administer the initial LPAC. Based on the initial LPAC and that home language survey, then we determine what is their English EL identification. And then we move on from there with all the other processes we're talking about.
Thank you.
And so when you're talking about taking a closer look into that 10% with the formal evaluation process or elevation process, will you also be taking a look at something that was discussed earlier today around emails? That some of the teachers were claiming that they didn't recognize an email for elevation or recognize the email that they should be responding to or, taking a closer look at.
What I loved about that, feel free, Mr. Kleinick, you can be a doctor too. What I appreciate about the panel today, there's a lot of things that we understand and we're trying to understand about the data. I had never heard before that maybe the emails are going to the other folder because of the way that they're worded. This is the advantage of the quantitative data that we may not see in the numbers, we may not see in elevation. So I think whether it's a panel or us going out to teacher council or DLAC and other places, this is how we get the bigger picture of what the needs are. That is the story behind the data.
And I would just add, so thank you for the invitation during that conversation to jump in. But the technology group has already taken the action item to look into that email sender from the elevation system to figure out, is it getting categorized a certain way? Is there a different way that we can treat those emails so that they're not treated like spam or some sort of business related thing? So the team was watching the video in real time and they're already investigating this.
So what I'm hearing is we're going to see a change in that email system pretty soon.
I can't guarantee. It depends on what they find and what they learn in that investigation process. But if there's a way that we can highlight those emails and make sure that they receive the prominence that we want them to have, the focus, we'll absolutely make those changes.
Yeah. And I have to agree that is a clear benefit to having this qualitative, I knew that was wrong coming out, qualitative data and hearing from real people, not just staff, but of course the students. And then another challenge that was brought up by our student was that sometimes during taking tests, there would be certain words in the question that he didn't understand in English, but that if he had certain words, if certain words were able to be translated, he would be able to answer those questions because he knows the content. And so I know that's not as easy a fix as maybe an email situation, but I believe it is a challenge to us to work on.
What I loved about hearing from Isaac today, it reinforces something that we know about our students and that we continue to reinforce, and it's that asset-based approach. Isaac and students like Isaac know a lot of things. They know a lot. I don't know much about Isaac. I would assume that before he came to the United States, he had a tremendous amount of education in his background. He knows a lot of things. He just didn't necessarily have the English language to attach to it. And that's what he was saying. Like, If I could just better understand what that question was asking, I can give you the information. I just need to better understand the question. And we can do some of that, and we do some of that. There are certain assessments, like SBAC, for example, that have some limitations on how we are able to translate. And I think that was maybe some of what you were referring to, Dr. Baker.
Yeah. And specifically, he said he'd ace every test if he had that modification.
I just had just one piece of commentary here as I looked at Figure 2 statistics, just recognizing that the monitoring percentages in our junior highs or middle schools. Sorry, I keep using antique language here, but I just recognize that our middle schools are some of our highest performing when it comes to the monitoring process, and so I'd be curious to hear what some of your hypothesis is on why our middle schools
definitely a celebration. One of the things that we think, so in middle school, students who are identified as an English learner are in an ELD course. And then that teacher, all of the students in that teacher's class are English learners. And so that teacher knows that he or she has an obligation as part of their responsibility to go through this entire process.
Got it.
Whereas in other grades, even elementary, frankly, you might only have one English learner in the classroom, two or three, and it just isn't at the forefront maybe of their mind to do the monitoring processes. So we heard the email as an example.
Yeah.
The ELD teacher at a middle school knows that they're going to be getting a lot of monitoring reports that are required. So that's one of our early hypotheses of why we think it's so high in the middle school level.
Right.
Okay, so we
Move to accept interim, monitoring report for interim goal 1B. Interim
Guardrail.
Board interim guardrail 1B. Thank you.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Our student board member?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0 with a preferential vote. Next on the agenda, we have item 17.4, Student Outcome Focused Governance Implementation Timeline. And I will report that for our implementation timeline meeting, committee meeting next month in July, we will include our new superintendent and fold you in as a part of the governance team as we work with our coach from the Council of Great City Schools. And then also in July, we will be conducting another board self-evaluation. And Dr. Benitez, I believe you'll be leading that discussion? Okay.
Yes, so similar to what we did in April for January, February, March, we'll go through the same or a very similar process for April, May, and June's quarter.
Great. Vice President Miller, did you have something to add to this?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide just a quick update. I know that there are a number of community members from District 2 who are anxious about the community check-in scheduled for my district. Know that we are looking at potentially late July, which would be ideal so that it doesn't impede on board member Maria's time period, but all things considered, there has not been a true date solidified, as I still want to get context from both the school district in regards to its availability, while also working with the multiple community partners that I'm looking to have present to work as both conduits to help getting the word out, but more importantly, support to some of our parents who have concerns about some of the issues with their child. So just know that some of those items are in the works, and I hope to have a more in-depth response with a date at our next board meeting.
Thank you. We look forward to having that update. Next on the agenda, we have item 17.5, approval of TK 12 and CDC Head Start 2025-2026 tentative agreement with Teachers Association of Long Beach.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Our student board member?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0 with a preferential vote. And next on the agenda, we have item 17.6, approval of memorandums of understanding with the Teachers Association of Long Beach.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And our student board member?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0 with a preferential vote. And item 17.7, approval of compensation for management and non-represented employees for the 2025-2026 school year.
Move for approval.
We need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Our student board member?
Aye.
So that passes 4-0 with a preferential vote. And next, we are at report of board members. Vice President Miller.
So I wanted to take my time to celebrate all of the young men and young women who crossed the stage over the past 3 weeks. I saw in our report we had 5,012. Is that the correct number? All things considered, I will say that for me, graduations are my favorite time of year. I have often sat on the stage and I have asked people, whispered in their ears. I think that every person on here in this boardroom can probably remember the question. And I ask, what is one of your proudest moments, right? And I asked that question because I know for those young people who are crossing that stage at that moment, this is that moment for them. This is that opportunity to be celebrated, to know that they've worked really, really hard for something and they accomplished it. And that's probably one of the most beautiful things of being human, working hard for something and accomplishing a goal. And so our graduations give us an opportunity to watch that in real time. And so I eat it up, man. I love every bit of it. Have a little bit of fun while I'm up there. I wanted to send special congratulations to the few high schools in my district in Long Beach Poly, Cabrillo, and Browning, as I was fortunate enough to be able to attend all of their graduations. I will jokingly say they probably have a little bit too much fun, but I don't know if you can do that at graduation day. So all things considered, once again, congratulations to all of our fantastic students of the class of 2026. And I look forward to seeing the success that they have in the future. We're talking about future doctors, future lawyers, future astronauts, future board members, and I'm just so very proud of them. So once again, congratulations.
Thank you. Dr. Benitez.
Yeah, just echoing Mr. Miller's sentiments, congratulating the students and everyone in their lives that supported them along the way. I think I heard from multiple student perspectives, them expressing so much appreciation for whether it was an individual in their lives or their family or their siblings or friends, and how important a role as a community we provide to student success. I'll also say this as part of my congratulations to the over 5,000 students. If you had some bumps in the road, your past doesn't define you. There's an opportunity here for you to grow and improve, and no one's perfect. Whether it's a 8th grade promotion or completer an act or a graduate from one of our high schools. Same token, if you had a great experience, your past accomplishments also don't define the rest of your life. So the work isn't over as part of this. Congratulations. I do want to build on Dr. Baker's expression of appreciation to our media team. I mean, how awesome is it to just pull up reels and images and videos and what we saw today and provide the ability for when loved ones cannot attend a graduation to be able to be there in spirit, but to be able to see the live stream of it. I think with the exception of CAMS, Dr. Baker, and for logistical reasons, I want to say all of our other high schools, okay, but in any case, just big kudos to the multimedia team for helping to share in the celebration and the spirit of this season of our academic year. The Franklin family was here, the student, and we had staff from the Franklin team. They had an amazing 8th grade promotion. I want to give a big shout out to Days Long Beach for providing everything, including transportation from Franklin, so that those students could have an amazing celebration. Days Long Beach helped with that, and again, all the staff that was also there supporting and celebrating with the students. And then that same Saturday had an amazing end of year celebration at Franklin. I mean, there were hundreds of students out with DJ out there and yoga, and just a beautiful way to close the year in a beautiful school and with a beautiful community. So just big kudos. That's the only middle school I have in my area. And in spite of many of the challenges in that neighborhood, there are wonderful, great things being celebrated and being done every day in that neighborhood and at that school. So I just wanted to, again, I know it's about celebrating our graduates, but it's also about celebrating all those partners, and caregivers, and families and students that have many celebrations throughout our wonderful school year.
Thank you. Member Lopez?
Well, attending this year's graduation ceremonies at Lindsay Academy, Jordan High School, Browning High School, and the Long Beach Schools for Adults was very special. Congratulations, graduates, and thank you, principals, for your outstanding leadership. Your commitment to fostering a culture of excellence in your schools was evident in every graduation ceremony I attended. They were beautiful. I also want to recognize the faculty and staff members who worked tirelessly to support students on their journey to graduation. Teachers, counselors, classified staff, administrators, and countless others who played an important role in helping students reach this milestone. Your guidance, your encouragement, and belief in our students helped make these achievements possible. It was such an honor to be a part of each school's celebration and to share such an important moment with our graduates and their families. Thank you, Lindsay, Jordan, Browning, and LBSA for the invitation. And on a whole separate note, as we conclude another year, I'd like to acknowledge several teams whose work often takes place behind the scenes, but their work is essential to the success of our school district and not often acknowledged. Thank you, translators. You ensure that families can fully participate and stay informed. Thank you for your work. Communications team, you faithfully stream board meetings. Every other Wednesday, you stay here late. Thank you for your hard work. And our school safety personnel, thank you for keeping our students and staff safe. And not only them, but our board members as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add to, all the graduation fund, but before that, last Saturday, Operation Jumpstart had an event, and for one thing, they honored our Dr. Baker. It was a well-deserved honor. And then for another thing, I don't know if you're familiar with Operation Jumpstart, but they pair adult mentors with high school students and in some cases middle school students, and the mentors are with the same mentees all through their high school career. And there were pairs of mentors and mentees that spoke about their experience, and it seems to me that it's the difference between being successful and maybe having an opportunity to go to a university or a college with that help of a mentor. So I just want to encourage people, if you're thinking of it, becoming a mentor, please check out Operation Jumpstart because they're doing great things. They also provide scholarships for students. So it's a wonderful program. And hearing from the adults that have participated, it enriches their lives as much or not more than the mentee. It's fabulous. This graduation season, I think, was one of my favorites. Everything went very smoothly for one thing, but for another thing, there were some really incredible speeches at the Reed EPHS graduation on the Browning campus. There were 3 speakers from EPHS, Stephanie Medina Arcega, Kayla Tucker, and Deloy Ratliff. One of the female speakers was very nervous, but she got through it. Afterwards, I had a chance to talk to her, and she said she thought she was going to have a panic attack because of the public speaking aspect of it. But she did well. Amazing. Hearing their stories was incredible. And then Deloy Ratliff, he is enjoying concurrent enrollment with where's he? He's taking classes at USC USC Film School, and his speech, he was using a lot of metaphors about writing your own script and that type of thing. In a way, he was speaking in a way that I hadn't heard. We go to a lot of graduations, you hear a lot of speeches, there's a lot of common themes, but this guy was speaking in a way that really, I think, drew us all in, and we were all amazed. And then to top it off, there was a speech by Mr. Ed Samuels that was amazing, and I hope that's one of the graduations that we have filmed.
Started from the bottom, Ed.
He was doing kind of a Chumbawamba thing where you get knocked down, you get back up again, but in a way that had us spellbound. That was, if we can put that on a video somewhere, that was so inspirational. We can just rely on that and play it when we need it.
It's almost like he has some public speaking.
Some people are better at it than others. That speech was incredible. And then the last graduation for my week was McBride. That was on Thursday, I think it was. Anyhow, that was where our student board member, that was her graduation. And McBride had a phenomenal year. So not only did McBride provide us with our student board member in Walla, but also the poet laureate for the city of Long Beach. And I'll just mention his name, Ezekiel Carrera. And then just a little side note, being in, Mr. Kalanick, you'll appreciate this, being in a new era or whatever. I mean, look what they're doing now on graduation programs. There's a QR code on there. So you can go here and have more information, more, access pictures and stuff. It's a new day. It's a new day. So very fun. So nice to celebrate with everybody. And so proud of our students, staff, everybody who prepares our kids to go on from here and be successful. And so with that, we will go to Dr. Baker. I believe this will be your final superintendent report for us.
Yes, this is my final superintendent report. So before I sign off, I want to thank you for the privilege of serving as superintendent of Long Beach Unified for the last 6 years. And more than that, I want to thank you for allowing me to spend nearly 35 years of my life in a school district that has shaped me as an educator, a leader, and a person. As I look back on my career, I see people. I see students discovering their potential, families placing their trust in us, employees dedicating their hearts to this work, labor partners, community organizations, business leaders, and elected officials standing beside us in support of children. What we've accomplished over the last 6 years has been remarkable. And we know without a doubt that with the right supports and systems, our students are possible of reaching greater heights than they have to this point in our journey. This is the work that continues in the days ahead. Serving this community has been the honor of a lifetime. I leave with a full heart, immense pride, and deep appreciation for every person who has been a part of my journey, especially the team that surrounds me tonight. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve. That is a gift that I will carry with me forever. I'd like to close by sharing the video that was created by our own Ruben Sosnowski from our communications team when I announced my pending retirement, because it centers our students, and I want our students to represent the last moments for me in LBUSD. Thank you. In the summer of 1992, I walked into my first classroom at what was then Burnett, now Bobby Smith Elementary School. That amazing class of students taught me every bit as much as I taught them. Most of all, they reinforced my view of education and the power of belonging, representation, and excellence for young people. Early on, I adopted a respect for the craft of teaching and the impact that can be made with organized, diligent, and focused instruction. Throughout my career, I have always said, classrooms are where the magic happens. Today, I am here to share with you that I will be retiring after the conclusion of this school year. Students at the center with each decision. What would be best for them? What can we learn that would help us know them better? How can we engage students in decision-making processes? Questions like these have guided my work from day one until this moment. Through each professional shift, I have drawn on my first-year classroom experience with students. Students have humbled me, they have motivated me, they have inspired me, and they have walked alongside me. They have fueled my drive and commitment to Nelson Mandela's words, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." As I became a facilitator, then a principal, an assistant superintendent, and ultimately the superintendent of schools, student experience and performance have remained central drivers in my work. While the responsibilities of each position have changed, the importance students hold in my life and work has never changed. Students at the center with each decision. For over 34 years, I have loved, held pride in, and worked hard for the Long Beach community. I didn't attend LBUSD as a student, but I certainly feel like I have grown up here, and I feel thankful to have a son and spouse who are both alumni from our schools. From my first class of students to the many teacher colleagues, administrators, classified staff, and community members, I hold deep care for the stories and the experiences that are LBUSD. In fact, I enjoy the opportunity to mentor and reconnect with former LBUSD students who are now leading careers in our community and can still recall me as their teacher, principal, or superintendent. The decision to retire has not rested lightly with me because there is so much more to do. At the same time, I hold deep trust in those who are here and those who will come next.
I have confidence in the strength of this community, and I know that the Long Beach Unified School District is a place that continues to grow stronger with time. We matriculate thousands of students each year, and we also grow as a system that remains nimble, humane, and diligent in the role we play and the responsibilities we hold. Thank you for your confidence in me and for the love and grace you have shown me over the past 3 decades. Serving this community has been the greatest honor of my professional life. Every classroom, every campus, every conversation, and every student story has shaped who I am. As this chapter comes to a close, my belief in Long Beach Unified remains unwavering. I believe in our students. I believe in our teachers, leaders, and staff. I believe in the power of community and what is possible when we lead with care, courage, and purpose. There is still so much work to do, and I know that work is in good hands. I will be cheering on this community in every way possible, carrying LBUSD with me at all times. Students at the center with each decision. The best is yet to be for LBUSD. I truly believe that.
That's kind of hard to follow. But we are now at the conclusion of our meeting. Well, I'll just say we've had a lot of opportunities to express our gratitude to you this at the end of this school year. And one final note, just thank you. There's so much more to say, but for now, I'll just leave it at thank you. You have put so much of yourself and your heart into this work. But we will close this meeting. Oh, no?
Can we adjourn in commemoration of Dr. Baker tonight and her service to the district?
That's a good idea. We will adjourn the meeting in honor of Dr. Baker for her service over 34 years to this district. And so our next regularly scheduled meeting will be July 15th. We have a little bit of a break, so July 15th. Thank you, everyone. Good night.